All right. Hey, everyone. How's it going? My name is Jay Ferguson. Thanks very much for tuning in. It's been a little while since I have done one of these videos, but our band Sloan was on tour in the fall of this year, just last month. And I thought I would do a little roundup of some of the records that I had the good opportunity to find out on tour in Western Canada. That's one of the bonuses of getting to tour in a rock band, is that you get to travel to a lot of places and go check out record stores everywhere. Something I've been doing for a long time, and I still get to do it, and so it's very fun. So I kind of thought I would do a roundup, on some of the stuff that I thought was interesting that I found along the way. We started our tour out in Victoria, British Columbia, and there are some stores there, but I didn't really have the chance to get to any. And then we next played in Vancouver. And in Vancouver, I did go to one record store called Beat Street. I saw a record, and I kind of waffled on it. And anyhow, more on that at the end of the video. The first place that I did find and buy some records was in Vernon, British Columbia, which is in the BC interior. I kind of get all the cities and towns in the BC interior mixed up. I don't know exactly where I am most of the time within the BC interior, not in general. But this town, I guess, or city, Vernon, British Columbia, my bandmate Chris Murphy was at a pawn shop that was selling that had like some used electric guitars, and there was one that he wanted to buy, and he said, hey, you should go check out this place because they have some records, and it was called Distinctive Decor Antiques in Vernon. And so I went there and checked out a bunch of the records, and I found a couple things that were sort of interesting. The first one is a copy of Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones. Why would you must have that by now, Jay? I'm sure many of you are asking. And I do, probably too many times on different formats. And I actually do have a copy of this version of it, but I bought it again only because I thought maybe it's an upgrade to the version that I have. And I'm referring to the Rolling Stone Sticky Fingers version that came out in Spain in the 1970s with a completely different cover. As you can see, I'm sure you're familiar with the Andy Warhol cover of the gentleman's blue jeans on the front and the back cover. And I guess perhaps just the culture in Spain found that offensive. So they decided to do this, which is, I don't know, is it kind of gross a little bit? I don't know if it's less offensive in some way, but it's definitely unusual, and it makes for an unusual record. I think this was actually reissued eventually, maybe on a record store day thing with this kind of cover artwork. But for a long time, you could only find this as a Spanish version. So yes, it has the alternate cover artwork and a different back as well. I kind of like this back, the sort of hand-tinted photo of the Rolling Stones in 1971. So I do have a copy of this already, and I think this copy is a little bit nicer than mine, so I'm happy that I found it. It was a good price, so I thought I would take the chance. I think the actual original 1971 versions have a white sort of Stones logo up on the corner, I think. So this is like a mid-70s repress from Spain. But anyhow, the other notable thing about this record is that it also doesn't include the song Sister Morphine, because once again, apparently it was deemed offensive in Spain in the 1970s. So that is not on the record, and they just substituted it with a live version of Let It Rock, the old Chuck Berry song, which is great, but it sort of sits in the middle of the record, kind of in an unusual spot. But anyhow, makes for kind of a cool record. So it comes like that, and it has these sort of like unusual inner sleeve that sort of goes over. It's rounded on the bottom, not unlike the Japanese ones, and then it sort of pops out of the top like that. This one's a little bit torn, but anyhow, as you can see, it has the classic sort of Stones label there, but it also, I'm glad, it also came with the original insert as well, which has a number of the song titles in Spanish, which I won't embarrass myself trying to pronounce. Anyhow, it was a cool find and surprising, sort of in the middle of nowhere, in kind of in a distinctive decor antique shop amongst a stack of records. I bought one other thing there as well, and it's funny. I bought this, and then a couple of days later, I saw a video by Jonas over at Vinyl Stockholm, and he bought the same thing on one of his record purchasing adventures. Although he found a UK copy, I found an original Canadian copy that I didn't have of the Poppy Family, Which Way You Goin' Billy, of course, featuring Susan Jacks. And there's the other cover. Not a super unusual record, especially here in Canada. But, this came out in when did this come out? In 1970, I believe? Yeah. And this was kind of the original cover. Within the same year, it was replaced with a picture of the full band and with some more graphic title up top. But I assume this is the first one. And this also came out on a black label like this, the old sort of London stereophonic label, if you can see it there. And I don't know if it's too much glare, but it also had a blue label as well. I don't know which is the first or which is the second, and I looked on Discogs and I couldn't figure it out either. If you happen to know which is the original, the blue or the black label, or which is the first pressing, I should say, please let me know. But anyhow, it was coincidental that I found this and then saw it a few days later on the Vinyl Stockholm channel. But whatever, a lot of classic songs on this. Of course, Which Way You Goin' Billy, being the biggest one, and all the songs written by Terry Jacks, kind of an underrated songwriter here in Canada. Anyhow, kind of a fun find for very cheap. I think it was like $10 here. Yeah, also in that furniture antique store in Vernon, BC. So where did we go from there? We went on to Edmonton, I think. I didn't get to a record store in Edmonton. And then we went on to play a theater in Calgary, which is one of my favorite shows of the tour, I think. So if anybody's watching from Calgary, thank you for coming. And it was a wonderful show. Not to knock any of the other shows. Vancouver was fantastic. And Vernon, we had a lovely time as well. Edmonton, we had fun there too. But yes, Calgary, wonderful theater show, exciting crowd and everything. And in the afternoon, I had the opportunity to go to the closest record store to the theater. And I hadn't been there before. And apparently it's only been there for 2 or 3 years. And it's a little record store called Neon Taste. And it kind of reminded me of a Rebel Rouser in Brooklyn, New York. The way it was curated, it was very leaning more towards punk for sure, and harder rock or metal, and also garage rock and things like that. But they obviously sold like country records and pop records and things like that. But much more focused on punk and harder rock. And a lot of the records had like a nice little sticker or label on them. Maybe I can show a couple right here. That would sort of describe the record and, the condition, of course, but maybe put the record in perspective, which is a big thing I noticed at Rebel Rouser in Brooklyn, and a wonderful store, which you should go to. And also, if you're in Calgary, you should go to it. So what did I buy there? I kind of only found one thing, and it's a reissue. Generally, I like to talk about, original records and things, but an original record of this, or original copy of this record would probably cost, about $1,000. And it also ties into the East Coast, where I'm from. I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia. And this is a record, a reissue by a band called the Stone Men. Yes, the Brothers Stone Men. This was originally, the two songs, oops, a bunch of things falling out of it right now. I'll hold up just the sleeve instead. Faded Colors is the A-side, and In the Evening, I think the song that I prefer, In the Evening, is the B-side. This is the only 7-inch. It didn't come in a picture sleeve or anything, but this is a reissue on Celluloid Lunch Records. And like I said, it came out in 1967. I think there are, less than 10 copies known to be kicking around amongst like the sort of collectors community, maybe more, but that's what I understand. But it's just sort of wild sounding garage rock with wild guitar sounds. I find the guitar sound on Faded Colors starts off, it sounds like Blixa Bargeld from, the Bad Seeds or something like that. It's pretty outrageous sounding, and especially outrageous being from New Brunswick. And the town they're from is Cap Pelé in New Brunswick. I don't think I've even been there before. And anyhow, it's a great little reissue, and I think the actual audio is not taken from any tapes. It's actually taken from one of the few surviving copies of the record. So I understand. There's also some cool liner notes in here, also, which I didn't realize until I opened it up when I got back to the venue. Written by Mark Gadet, and he had his own sort of fanzine and sort of nom de plume of Venison Creek. He always would make these top 10 lists and and he actually had sort of a zine as well. And Mark Cadet played, I've known Mark for well over 34 years or so. He played drums in the band Eric Strip and later Elevator, or Elevator to Hell, and then Elevator. And he's a big record collector, and so it does not surprise me that he would have been someone who they looked towards for more information on his fellow New Brunswickian, is that the right word? Band, the Stone Men. So it's cool. And apparently they did some other recordings that just either have been lost, and they even appeared on a like local TV show called Top 10 Plus a few times. According to the interview here, I think Mark Cadet asked one of the members, they're all four brothers, by the way. I think he talks to Fernand LeBlanc, the LeBlanc brothers. Let's see, Top 10 Plus TV show out of Moncton. What was it like? And Fernand says, we were on that more than once, about half a dozen times. So there could be, 6 TV appearances floating around, likely scrapped or erased of this band, Stone Men. Anyhow, very early garage rock from the east coast of Canada and New Brunswick. And I think you can find this, and I recommend it, and it's a great artifact from the time. And it's nicely done by Celluloid Lunch, a little sleeve, and also comes with a cool little sort of photo reproduction of the LeBlanc brothers as well. Anyhow, I didn't know a lot about it, and I had to go to Calgary, all the way to Calgary, to find out about this cool band from the Maritimes. Anyhow, check it out if you happen to see that, or if you're interested in, vintage Canadian garage rock. Where do we go next? I'm trying to think. Maybe we went to Saskatoon or Regina. Anyhow, I'm going to say Regina. I should look at my schedule, and I should know. But anyhow, there's a store there called Vintage Vinyl, and I don't know if I've been there. I haven't been there in years. We haven't been to Regina a lot. We often, within Saskatchewan, we go to Saskatoon more frequently. But we went to both this time. Actually, we went to Saskatoon twice. But this time we also went to Regina. And I went to Vintage Vinyl, and I found 3 records that I was interested in. Cool store, huge stock. I was there probably a little too long, I think. But it was wonderful. And this record, I feel a little sort of, not funny, but or embarrassed or something like that. But it's an unusual record, maybe in my collection. Although I kind of like that late '60s, early '70s kind of British obsession with like late '50s rock and roll, and that would include people like Dave Edmunds. And I think later Matchbox and then other bands, perhaps with the pub rock movement. But one of the people who was not very popular at the time, but became very popular in the 1980s, was a gentleman by the name of Shakin' Stevens. And this is Shakin' Stevens and the Sunsets' second LP from 1971. This was only released in Britain and the Netherlands. This is a copy from the Netherlands. The album's called I'm No JD, which I assume means juvenile delinquent, I think, and there's the back cover. Now, I'm a sucker, especially for the first Shakin' Stevens and the Sunset record called, I think it's called The Legend or A Legend, and it was on Parlophone from 1970, produced by a rocker who I'm a big fan of. His name is Dave Edmunds. And but he was from Wales, as well as Shakin' Stevens, and he produced the first album, and it sounds awesome. If you like those early Dave Edmunds recordings that he did under his own, he was later in a band called Rockpile, but he made a record called Rockpile back then. If you like that kind of sound that he was doing, and like I Hear You Knockin', which was a big early hit for Dave Edmunds, if you like that style of recording, then you'd probably like the first Shakin' Stevens record. Anyhow, this is the second one. Sounds a little bit different, kind of a combination of some originals and some covers as well. And I think I like I said, the first one a little bit more, but I had never come across this. I never see this out in the wild. So I was kind of happy to find it. And Shakin' Stevens went on to, he didn't really have any chart records in the 1970s, but in the 1980s, he was massive in England for songs like You Drive Me Crazy, Marie Marie, The Green Door. And I think I was doing a little research, and I read that he spent the most time on the singles charts in the 1980s, in the UK singles charts, than anybody else. So you got to hand it to him. And he made some cool rock and roll, retro 50s rock and roll recordings, and this is one of them. So I kind of have a soft spot for it, and if you like that late 60s British obsession with 50s rock and roll, then you might dig this as well. Anyhow, Shakin' Stevens and the Sunset, and some of the people like to see the labels on the original CBS green label. Normally they were orange, I believe, but for a period of time they were green. Anyhow, there it is if you want to check it out. Anyhow, Shakin' Stevens and the Sunsets. I'm no JD. Very unusual finding this in Regina. I've never even seen it anywhere else. I have a record here also that was I have a copy of this that, the cover was just a tiny little bit beat up, and it always kind of bothered me, Anyhow, do people know what I'm talking about? So I found a sealed copy of this band called the Beckies. That's the front cover. This was released on Sire Records in 1976. And this gentleman right here, his name is Michael Brown, also went by the name Michael Lukowski, which I think is his real name. And this is sort of like a very kind of power pop guitar rock and roll record from the United States. And Michael Brown, this gentleman was originally in the band The Left Bank from New York City, who, of course, Pretty Ballerina, Walk Away Renee, and amongst, a zillion other amazing songs. Fantastic group. He was the primary songwriter in that band. Then he went on to be in a band called Stories. And then this was a sort of probably throwing his hat in the ring for a little bit more like power pop, new wave-ish era. And it's got a cool graphic, but anyhow, I see this around frequently, but I found a sealed copy for about $10, so I couldn't resist it. Maybe I'll try and play a song from them as well, and see if it doesn't get taken down. Okay, yeah, the Beckies. Here it is. Yeah. All right. Anyhow, the third record that I found at Vintage Vinyl in Regina was maybe a genre that I don't buy a lot of records within that often. Sort of like British traditional folk from the 1960s and 1970s. I like the Fairport Convention records, and I especially like the Richard Thompson and Richard and Linda Thompson records. Wonderful songwriting, and Linda Thompson is a fabulous vocalist. This is by, within Vintage Vinyl, I was going through some bins in the folk section, and it looked like someone had left behind a massive British 60s and 70s folk collection, UK pressings. And so many of them were in just beautiful condition. I really should have bought more of them. But I picked up one by a singer and songwriter, guitar player by the name of Martin Carthy. I was drawn to the lovely artwork and the font on this record. The album's called Landfall. And I believe, I don't know if I wrote this down, but I think it's from about 1971 or so on the Philips label. Yes, it is 1971. There you go. Anyhow, I really, some of it's a little bit high diddly-dee kind of folk music, but there's some lovely songs on this. He later went on to, he was also a singer and guitar player in the band Steel Eye Span from the UK. But I'm a big sucker for that kind of UK fingerstyle acoustic folk guitar playing that, Richard Thompson, for sure. Although Richard Thompson was maybe thought of more as a leader in electric guitar, but the guitar playing on this is lovely. I guess there are other people like perhaps John Martin and people like that, but I love that kind of guitar playing that, of course, went on to influence some of my favorite guitar players like Johnny Marr, excuse me, or Roddy Frame from Aztec Camera in the early 80s. And a lot of the genesis of it could be found in the British folk guitar players, I would say, of the 1960s and 70s. Anyhow, this is quite of a wonderful record and in beautiful shape, and I really probably should have bought some more of the folk records that they had there. It looked like a wonderful collection. So if you're reading this and you like that kind of music and you're in Regina, head down to Vintage Vinyl because they might have a number of those records still left. We continued on from, where did we go? Yes, so it was in Regina. We were up to Saskatoon, and then we made our way to Brandon, Manitoba, played in a lovely, lovely theater. And then we continued on to Winnipeg. And there's a record store that I always like to go into in Winnipeg, and it's called Into the Music. It's been there for decades, I would like to say. And you know what? I almost always find a couple of records there, but I didn't this time. But I found a couple of cool magazines from, and I'm a big fan of like British and American 60s, 70s rock ephemera and rock magazines. And also, as well, I'm a fan of Canadian stuff. This is, I found this cool magazine called Beatle magazine. I have a few issues of this, but I don't have the sort of newspaper style edition. Look at that awesome logo. Make a great t-shirt. So Beatle was a Canadian rock magazine in the 1970s. This one's got Rod Stewart in the Faces, Alice Cooper, cool little story on him, Beach Boys, and Cheech and Chong. Anyhow, it was the 1970s, I guess. So whatever, this is from March 29th, 1972, and I know this is more about records, but I just wanted to show this and recommend that Into the Music is a great shop. I was happy to find that, and I also found a cool book there on 10cc. This is sort of like a British paperback from the early to mid 70s. And this guy, George Tremlett, wrote a number of sort of pocket novels that were probably meant for the cigar store or, the checkout counter at like a supermarket or something like that. They're all kind of small and easy to read. But this one I thought was interesting because he actually interviewed all the members of 10cc for this. So it wasn't just sort of like he's done one on Paul McCartney, and I don't know if he really had Paul McCartney's ear for, full paperback novel. But I thought this was interesting in his catalog of books, I guess you could say, in that everybody participated. So I thought it was kind of an interesting read, and it was $1. Anyhow, awesome. I love finding old British paperbacks. Anyhow, just a shout out to Into the Music. And we were also in Winnipeg for an extra day, and I managed to go to a record store that I hadn't heard of before, and I think it had only been around for maybe a year or two, and it was called Dooley Records, like duly noted, D-U-L-Y, and I had a nice chat there with the owner named Peter, and he had a great selection of, he had a book selection, magazine selection, huge vinyl selection in a number of categories from, jazz to country to rock to 60s stuff, rare stuff, and as well like cool sort of 80s, 90s, rock and pop, but also, stuff off the beaten path and some very unusual records as well. And he had a great collection of the Capitol 6000 series records that came out. That was kind of like a unique series of records on Capitol in the 1960s that were mostly a lot of like British invasion stuff and some American things, but mostly unique British records that would be sort of interesting versions that came out in Canada. Anyhow, the one record that I did buy, I was very happy to find, as I'm a sucker for original British releases from the UK, rock pop kind of stuff. And this one I was happy to find. It's a record by the Trogs. I'm sure you all know, due to Wild Thing. This is their album Cellophane, which I think is their third or fourth record. I was very happy to find this. I haven't seen it out in the wild before. And the big hit on this one is Love Is All Around. And there's a lovely photo of the gentleman on the back cover. I must admit, some of the Trogs records are kind of hit or miss. There are some songs that are okay, but there's often some great tracks. So obviously, Love Is All Around is a fantastic hit, but there's a few other songs that I was really drawn to as well. And so that's the cover, and it was on the Page One label out of the UK. And I just love I love British rock, but especially nice British pressings like this. And once again, very surprised to find this out in Winnipeg. So happy to stop in at Dooley Records. Cool store there that you might want to check out, but also check out Into the Music there as well if you find yourself in Winnipeg and looking to do some record shopping. So happy to find Cellophane in Winnipeg. Anyhow, so then from Winnipeg, we made our way back to Saskatoon. We'd played a show in Saskatoon. That one sold out, and we went back to play and booked ourselves to go back and play another one. We couldn't do two in a row, so we sort of booted it back later in the week to play a show there. And there's a record store there that I always drop into. It's called the Vinyl Diner, a little place upstairs. And I saw a record there, and I was kind of waffling on it. Again, I waffle a lot. I keep sort of like, do I need that? Does that cost too much money? Should I just spend it? What should I do? Anyhow, classic story of my life. But anyhow, I saw a record there, and I decided not to get it on the first time we were in Saskatoon. Then we went back. I was like, it was on my mind the whole time. And I was like, I got to go back and get it. And I'm glad I did, because it's a beautiful copy of this record. And it's not one, I mean, I see it once maybe every once in a while here in Canada, here in Toronto, I should say. And often the cover's a little bit beat up, and do I want to pay that much? And the cover's not very nice. But I'm glad I waited, because I found a beautiful copy of the self-titled debut by Eternity's Children. And it's in stunning shape. Like, the record cover looks like it's just been taken out of the shrink wrap, basically. Anyhow, I'm hoping you can see it in the glare there. And Eternity's Children, for those who don't know, this is also part of the 6000 series on Capitol that I was mentioning before. A band originally I think they're from Mississippi originally, and eventually, we're sort of the backup band for some other bigger stars like Charlie Rich, for example, and maybe even someone else too. But they went on, eventually moved to California, ended up being signed by Tower Records, which was a subsidiary, of Capitol Records in the United States. And they made this record with a gentleman named Kurt Betcher, who I'm a fan of many of his records. So it's very, it falls in that category of post Pet Sounds, sunshine pop from California in the late 1960s. And Kurt Betcher was involved in a couple of records that were really high watermark records of that kind of sound. One of them, Present Tense, by the band Sagittarius, and then also Begin by The Millennium, both albums which are full of wonderful songs. And Kurt Betcher lends his hand writing and singing and producing, and he produced this record with a guy named Keith Olsen, who went on to produce, I think, the Fleetwood Mac in the 1970s. But wonderful sounding record, some great songs. Wasn't a big hit at the time. I think the one song, Mrs. Bluebird, was a single, and it did okay in the United States, but actually did better in Canada. And Eternity's Children went on to make a second record that was only released in Canada because they actually had success here, and in the United States they didn't even release it. And that record is even rarer than this record. This record is sort of common, but I was so happy to find it in such a beautiful shape that I couldn't leave it behind. So very happy to find it at Vinyl Diner and chatting with the folks there. I was very happy with the price that I got that for. And yes, as you can see, sorry, for people who like to see the labels and all that jazz, it's on the classic rainbow label, Capitol. It'd be on the Tower Records label in the United States, but up here in Canada, it was on the rainbow Capitol label. So very happy to find that. Wonder what time he's coming home. I can't say I like this being here alone, but in time you'll find that I've made up my mind. With you on the kind, I wish we could find once again. The last record I want to mention, so when we played, we played in Vancouver very early on the tour, and I mentioned that I went to a store there called Beat Street Records, and there was a record there that I waffled on. It was sealed, and I kind of thought, is this is a record from the 60s? And I was like, oh, just the price. I was like, do I want to pay that? And I just, anyhow, couldn't decide. The rest of the tour, I'm thinking about the record. Why didn't I buy it? So the record is called Without Earth by a band called The Moon. And I have their second LP. And, I have the second LP and I really love that record. So I don't know why I didn't just sort of dive in and get the record. But anyhow, our manager, Mike, he lives in Vancouver. And so I placed a call to Mike. Mike, look, I left a record behind. And I really wish I'd bought it. Would you mind going to the record store and seeing if it's still there? And he very graciously went down to the shop and picked it up for me. And yes, I still owe him the cash for that record, so I'll send that to him promptly. But thank you very much, Mike. And I even have a photo here, which, him holding the record, so I was very glad to get it. So hopefully I'll get it when he's back in town for Christmas. And it's, sort of psychedelic, slightly orchestral pop music, and featuring David Marks, who originally was in the Beach Boys. So yeah, the last record that I was really excited to have, I don't have a copy of in my hand. I'm just waiting to get it from Mike. So thank you very much for going to get that. And he knows that I waffle on things, so hopefully he took pity on me and went and got the record. So thanks for that. Anyhow, those are the records that I found on tour. We had a great time playing the shows. The shows themselves were fantastic. And it was great to see a lot of people and see a lot of the fans out there. And the turnouts were just wonderful. Most of the shows sold out. So thank you to everybody who came out to the shows. And we're looking forward to doing some in the East. No, I guess it would be like in Ontario and stuff, and that's going to be coming up in a couple of months. So I'll get to do a little more record shopping in some other smaller cities and towns in Ontario and Quebec. So I had a good time, and I was really happy to stop into all those shops. And maybe I'll put a little link to some of those shops here, or maybe I'll do it on Instagram so that maybe you can find them and go shopping if you happen to pass through those towns, or if you don't know about them and you live in that city, but I'm sure you probably already do. Okay, that's it. I noticed a lot of people making who are making, record enthusiasm videos such as this, who are doing sort of like their favorite finds of 2025. I think I've watched a couple and I quite like them, and I find them interesting, and I'm always interested in finding about new music and hearing people who are enthusiastic about records and music. So I might try and do one of those in the next couple of weeks, some of my favorite things that I found in 2025, kind of a wrap-up video. But hopefully I'll get this out before the holidays. So happy holidays to all of you, and thanks very much once again for tuning in, and stay safe and have a great time this season. So thanks very much again for watching, and we'll see you next time. All right, take care.